Okay, hopefully we are back and I'm going to stop messing with things because for the life of me, I don't know what's causing this and it's kind of getting annoying. Um, so hopefully you guys are still with me. And like I said, I'm going to have to try and figure out what's going on later. But for now, we're just going to hopefully keep going the way we're going. And then say once again, welcome on in, everybody. Hey, Acetacraft, thank you for rating in with 2 of your viewers. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And once again, Stephen Poole, Shenanigans, Still Monkey Research, and Acetacraft, thank you all for being here. No, the issue wasn't you. That is for a fact. This camera, this Brio camera, there is something with this Windows box where something keeps trying to take over this camera. And it's almost like I'm about ready to just reload everything or go in and drastically remove a whole bunch of stuff and then just limit what I put back on this machine. So, yeah. Which is the downside is you know, I have to put some things on here for a stream. And I may stop doing that down the road just because I need this to actually work, you know. So you have your bus ticket for the trucking school. You leave on October 9th. Awesome. Congratulations, Acetacraft. Congratulations. So as I was saying, this is the joys of printing on glass, and especially a piece of glass where the silicone heater is directly attached to the glass. Because that means you can't take this off and go put it in the fridge if you need to cool it down, if you got a piece that's extra stuck or anything like that. So basically, you just get to come in here with your spatula and scrape everything off and hope that you can get up underneath the edge without stabbing and slicing yourself to high heaven. Because, yeah. You know, I know printers require blood sacrifices sometimes, but yeah, let's not mess with that. Now let's see if we can change our views by using the mouse instead of my Stream Deck. And I'll say we are starting to get some better prints. And the top surface still has a little bit of gaps. I might go ahead and make it 94% all the way around, but I'm trying to get this dialed in. We still have a couple of little gaps on the top. Maybe need to add another top layer because I'm seeing some of the, yeah, there's some tweaks that I can make on this. Hey, Westry One, how are you doing? Yeah, so Evil Diesel made me a coin based on my logo. It's a little bit off from my regular logo. I think he had to squish it a little bit to get it on there. But yeah, came out well enough that we're making coins to have at the table to hand out. I've got 1, 2, 3 printers running these maker coins now. So yeah. So now that we've got a little bit of things working right on this printer in standard Digital Dragon fashion, that means we're going to mess with the printer now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the bed down, because what we're going to do is clean the bed, install our PEI sheet, and then we'll start working on installing the OEM bed leveling sensor. Because we can physically do an install of the bed leveling sensor, but it does us really no good until we have a PEI sheet. We cannot use it until we have the PEI sheet. So, couple of things that we're going to need, maybe, if I can find what I was looking for. I'm going to need the alcohol and paper towel, which I got, and I was looking for my 3-in-1 PTFE oil, but I may have taken it back downstairs. And the reason I'm looking for it is it sounds like I may need to add some lubrication to the Z-rods, and that might be why it's why we're getting a little bit of stuttering on our Z-axis. So we're cleaning the bed right now, Westery, because we're going to be putting a magnet on top of it. So we need it as clean as possible so that we get good adhesion for the magnet. Yeah. So in previous stream, we looked at the ABL sensor. I'm just going to set that underneath there for now. And the PEI sheet that we got with the kit. Once again, the printer itself is $375. And if you get the PEI sheet with magnet and the ABL sensor, it only goes up to $390. Yeah, who needs good adhesion? I don't know. I don't know. Did you need good adhesion for that giant Frisbee you were printing? And you might see me working my back. The whole right side of my back has been like tweaked and has really been bugging me the last couple of days. So if you see me kind of flinching and moving around a bit, it's just a little tender. That was great. I just hit home with, so the screen's a little sensitive. Hey, Modlight, how are you doing, my friend? Welcome on in. I'm going to have a sip of coffee while I'm waiting for this to go through its homing sequence, and then we'll try again. Maybe take a quick gander around my desk to see if I did have that PTFE oil up here, and it doesn't look like I do. And now that that's done, we'll move the bed back down some. Unfortunately, I can only move the bed 10 millimeters at a time. Yeah, so, sis, I thought you said there was somebody else that you might be making one of those giant Frisbees for as well. Okay, so that's good. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to turn it off and unplug it. Because we're going to do a little bit of work here on the printer. And part of that work that we're going to do is going to involve working on the tool head up here and needing to feed some wires into the electronics bay in the back. So, okay, sis, that'll work. Hey, Zombie, welcome on in. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and standard practice. We're just going to peel back the protective cover on our magnet a little bit. Not a lot, just a tad bit. Fold it back. And then we're going to set it in our printer, lining up the front edge. And here, let me switch you guys over and possibly bring you in here with the other camera. See if I can't get you in here without falling over myself. So I'm just going to line up this magnet on the glass build plate at the front and the sides, just using my fingers. And then I'm going to reach back here in the back in the center and just push it down. And then work my way to the side. And that's going to get the first 5 to 10 millimeters secured down there. And I can lift this up, grab the end of that sheet, pull back some more, and just roll it down and press it on there. Oh, is Major Gamer Geek in here too? Hey, Major Gamer Geek, how you doing, my friend? Welcome on in. Welcome on in. Yeah. So I'm not a big pumpkin spice latte or anything like that fan, but I do love pumpkin pie and pumpkin spice, just not in my coffee. So if you've ever heard of Nothing Bundt cakes, they have these little things called buntlets, and they're real small bundt cakes, and they drizzle icing over them, and they fill up the whole center of the cake. There's a hole, it's like a big ring, is what a bundt cake is. And they will actually put that cream cheese frosting and fill up the inner ring with it. So yeah, that's kind of a weakness for me, but it takes me a while to eat them because I can't eat more than a bite or two at a time. Okay, so we are going to let this kind of sit here for a little bit and let that adhesive kind of work its magic. We'll have our build plate, and this is a double-sided textured build plate. I would probably say it wouldn't be a bad idea to take it down and wash it with some Dawn dish soap, just to get any oils off of it and everything. But for now, we're just going to set it on there and keep it out of the way. I didn't say butt cakes, I said bunt, B-U-N-D-T. But yes. So let's see what we have here in our little package that has our ABL sensor. So we get the directions. Sorry for the lighting here, folks. Installation tutorial, and then I think that's Russian or Ukrainian or something like that. And then tutorial per installation. So they do everything with QR codes that normally takes you to a video. So we will be watching that video a little bit, but the physical install, I don't think I really need, because I've watched the video a couple times already. So we'll just kind of walk through it. Yeah. Well, and if you get an alien box, the alien box, so let's now that you show talk about that and reminded me. What did I do with my alien box that arrived today? Ah, here we go. Nice. So the alien box that arrived today, we've got our Sample Until I Die sticker. We've got a series of filaments. So we've got Filamatrix Iced Amethyst PLA. We've got light brown PLA. This is all Filamatrix. We've got a lilac purple, which is really pretty, and a silver PLA. This all just arrived today in our alien box. And I can't remember off the top of my head what the project is, but we got all the project stuff here. I want to say it was something to do with a laser. It's a tachometer. That's right. It was a laser tachometer. And then the other thing, funny you should mention this, and funny enough, I actually have one of these, so I know who's going to get this. But we've got a set of feeler gauges. And so these run from 0.040. Actually, there's less than that. We've got 0.03, 0.18, and of course, I don't know if you can tell on here how much shipping oil is in this stuff, but yeah, I could just run my hands up and down the linear rods right now, or the lead screws right now, and lubricate them with the amount of shipping oil that I just got on my hands. But yep, so if you're part of the alien box, UFO box, and you get everything and not just the filament, you would have gotten a set of feeler gauges that would be very good to use as well. Hey, Pez Liz, imagine seeing you here. We were just looking at our Alien 3D box and the cool little sticker that came with it. Sample until I die. But we were talking about using the backing paper from your magnet as the paper that you use to set your Z offset height initially and do your bed leveling with, because it's a good like 0.1 millimeter rather than just any type of random paper, which you never know what kind of bond stock they give you, whether it's too cheap or not. Oh, not a problem. Not a problem whatsoever, Chewy. You got food. In fact, Mrs. Dragon showed up with coffee right as I was getting ready to hit the stream notification. So I haven't had my afternoon streaming donuts yet. They're sitting downstairs waiting for me. And like I said, people, not necessarily a good idea to use isopropyl alcohol to clean your hands, but when your hands were just full of shipping oil, well, maybe not a bad idea. Maybe not a bad idea. So the printer itself, we're putting an ABL sensor on there. I have zero idea why the ABL sensor would come with 2 more flags for the ZN stop, because you're going to physically disconnect the ZN stop. So I don't get why, like if anything, you might even want to take the ZN stop flags off. So don't know why, but they're there. But you would need this printed piece. This is going to be an adapter that we're going to put onto our tool head. So what we're going to do, I might have to try and, because we're going to be putting it on this side. So give me 1 second and I will swap positions with my camera, hopefully. Whoops. All right. Feet there. Camera angle there. Yay. So we're going to mount this right here. So what you're going to need to do is put a M3 hex nut in here, which it was already in there for me. and you're going to mount this right here. So you're going to have to take out this screw, and this is going to slide onto this backing plate, and you'll put through this screw through this bracket, which holds on, I believe, the fan shroud, and then you'll go through your ABL sensor and mount your ABL sensor onto this bracket, and that should set the height automatically. All right, so that's what we're going to do here. So we need to take one screw out here with a 2.5 millimeter, since it's an M3. And quite honestly, I may not use their bracket because this is made for, I mean, it's made to be an enclosed printer. And I have no idea if this is PETG or ABS or PC or what this is. I have no idea, right? So I have printed that part in Polymaker ABS. So I know exactly what this is made out of. And this is kind of shiny, almost like I would expect PETG to be. Maybe it was PC, but I can't. I'd be hard pressed to say that they would do a PC print for a $400 printer. You know, so I'm just going to save myself some headaches and some heartaches. And even though I just dropped a screw on the ground somewhere, and I'm just going to go ahead and install a known ABS part to just hedge my bets. And that feels like it's in there pretty good. So we're just going to grab one of our own M3 hex nuts to push in there. And I just knocked a screw down and I don't know where it went. So well, I guess we'll find it eventually. So you just fit our screw or our hex nut in there. And then this should slide right into position there. And we'll use the shorter of the two screws to secure it back in here. There we go. And you want to kind of hold it up against the side here to keep it vertical. Oh yeah, if you weren't building on stream, you'd have a rook done in a day, maybe a second one if you wanted to do like wire verification and software config. So I'm just going to move this over, and let me go ahead and take the zip tie off of here. Might make it a little bit easier. We're just going to drape this over the back for now. And once again, this is going to go into the printed part and into the M3 nut that we put in there. And then once again, you want this to be perpendicular. I had a feeling that was going to be the issue. So this nut kind of pushed back. So I'm going to take this back out and do something to hold that nut all the way in. Come on, darn it. We're just going to see if we can't pull it in there fully. And if not, and it doesn't stay, then we'll try something else. No, that's not going to stay there. So I'm going to do this because if we mount this first, I think it's actually in the way of the other one. Might be able to get it snuck in there. Yeah, we'll be able to do it if I don't screw it in all the way. I think I should be able to get that screw in there. All right, now darn it. Hey, Timor, how's it going? Thank you for resubscribing for another month. Thank you for the 5-month streak.
Late again.
Darn it, yeah, so. That's not going to work. If I get this loose enough that I can move it out of the way, it's probably going to drop off of the nut in the back. Well, maybe not. All right, good. So we need just a little bit more room in there to make it easier, especially if I'm trying to show you on a stream. Darn it. Yep, hasn't been that long, Timor. Right, now I'm thinking that I've got something not aligned. Sorry, folks. I have to get my arm in the way here. There we go. So that's the print to mount the printed part. Then we're going to make sure that this is vertical. And we'll tighten this up. And that's secure. Now what it does is it provides us with a bunch of zip ties to zip tie this to the to just zip tie this cable up to the rest of our cable chain. Or because it's a split loom, you can take these out and you can put it back into your split loom, which is what I think I'm going to do. So I'm going to move you guys back out of the way over here. Maybe raise you all up so you can see what I'm doing and working on. As we get in here. There we go. Once again, we've already gone through and turned off the printer, because that's a good safety thing to do, is to have the printer turned off as we're moving things around. And we're just going to come in here and snip off these 3 zip ties that are holding our thing on here. And make sure you're only cutting a zip tie. You don't want to be cutting wires. That will lead to a bad day at the office. And more soldering than I plan on doing on the stream today. Hey, Kalimba Cass, welcome on in. Welcome on in. Thank you for the first time chat, and thank you for a follow. That's awesome. Yeah, there's been quite a few people that have been following me during the week when I'm not streaming. And until I see you in the stream, it doesn't jog a memory to me. So, whoop. And we've got a ad break going, so we will go ahead and wait slightly a bit for that ad break to finish. I'm going to try and pull this up and get our wire started. And I can tell you, I am not a major fan of this type of tubing. Yeah, there's a part of me that is thinking that down the road I may be swapping this type of tubing out for just regular cloth sleeving. But what I'm going to do is just work my way back. So I'll grab some zip ties in case I need some extras and pull out theirs. And I don't want to leave this without support. So I do want to redo at least one of these as I come back in here. So go from the front, around the back, back in. There we go. Okay, so we're back from our little ad break. Yeah, so Kalimba, what I was saying was I've had a few people lately that have followed during the week when I'm not streaming. And I see the name and then it dawns on me, oh, hey, yeah, you followed recently. So thank you again for the follow, and thank you for taking part in the conversation. We're a pretty mellow and I would say open community here of streamers and 3D printer people. So we like all things 3D printing. We like chatting about 3D printing or building printers or things that we are printing lately. So definitely come on in. Well, thank you. So I do, I stream on Twitch primarily. Some people are trying to get me to go over and do some stuff on YouTube as well. I do have a YouTube channel, and I try and cross-pollinate my stream videos over onto YouTube because I believe they're going to last longer over there than here on Twitch. And that way, if I wind up doing some other content over on Twitch, at least there's some type of set of videos over there that hopefully should get me a little bit of recognition when I start streaming over there to start with. Yeah, when you trim your tails off, make sure you trim them as close as possible to the head of the zip tie. If you ever need to replace the zip tie, no big deal, no bad, no harm, no foul type of thing. It's easy enough to do. But if the one time that you leave a sharp edge right there and you cut it and you slice yourself open and you start bleeding everywhere, you'll remember shortly thereafter to start clipping those ends a little bit nicer. And I'm running my finger through here. I know there's a trick where you can basically run a screwdriver through here as well and probably not tear up your hand. But, I'm a glutton for punishment here. So I'll tell you this printer, it's $400 for everything you see here, which includes the PEI sheet and the ABL sensor. If you want to get an additional hot end, which is the basically it's the heater block, the heater core, I think the thermistor, the heat break, and the nozzle, from the looks of the picture, it's a little bit more expensive. I think it was like $45 just for that piece, or at least that's what the increase in price was, which I thought was asinine. And I would just, because it looks like a standard E3D V6 style heat block, so I don't know why it would be that much expensive. But yeah. But so far, from everything I've seen of this kit, it's sturdy, it's well built, it works. This Z-axis motion platform, where you've got two 10mm linear rods and the double bearing stack on each of those rods with the lead screws, it works perfectly fine. It's the same thing that the Ender 5 Plus uses, and I had no complaints with that. The only reason I went to a Hydra was stream content and my own personal desire. But yeah, I'm real happy with this printer so far. Ow, that hurt. Like trying to dial in your extrusion multiplier and just working with Cura is kind of I don't want to say a downer or a bummer. I'm just not used to working with Cura anymore. I'm like seriously thinking, oh, that's thin. Is this the thicker kind? That is the thicker kind. Okay, yeah, I think we're going to just completely change up the type of sleeving that we're using, because this is going to annoy the crap out of me. So we'll redo some of these. Now, I will tell you that this is a large printer. This is not a Voron V0. This is a big size printer. It's going to take up some desk space, so that you will need to be aware of. But So far, like performance wise, I think it's worth the money so far. I do. And yeah, about the YouTube channel and starting to show up on there, I noticed that too. Like I noticed that I'm seeing some of my own videos in some search results. So yeah, so there's that. Apparently, I'm getting a little bit known here or there, or I've I've made inroads on some algorithm at some point. Yeah, so about the only thing that I hate worse than this type of split loom would be the spiral plastic split loom that just takes like 5 years to get on and off whenever you have to do something with it. Um, so Timor, sort of what we're doing is we're adding the OEM mods, and we will be that will include having to do some work underneath the on the controller, because we'll have to unplug the Z in stops and plug in the ABL sensor, right? And then we'll have to load a different version of the Marlin firmware. They do provide a version for their ABL, so we'll go through that process. And at the same time, while we're doing some of that work, we will also be putting together a Raspberry Pi Zero 2W, 2W, and starting the process to get ready for Klipper. Partly because it's going to go under the deck as well, so while I'm underneath there, I might as well get it plumbed and put in place. Okay, so we're just going to bring everything back up here and see if we can't make our life a little bit easier. There we go. See what I'm doing. So we're just going to keep working on a wire wrap. But yes, this is the first official mods, and it's the OEM upgrades, which is the PEI bedsheet and the ABL sensor from the manufacturer. Now, this ABL sensor, several people that I've been reading comments on are saying that the ABL sensor is not all that. But my take on that is I'm going to install it and run it as the OEM sensor. And if it turns out to be crap, well, it's easy enough to pull off and swap out with something else, like a genuine BL touch sensor, because there's a couple of mods for that, and it mounts in the same exact place right here on the right hand side, so it's easy enough mod to put in place and do. The some people are doing board swaps when going to Klipper. You don't need to do that. This MKS Robin Nano does support Klipper, so we will be going to Klipper using the existing board. And you go, well, but that touch screen that you got won't work. Well, the touch screen will work. There is, you just have to know the right pinouts for it. And I've got the page marked that shows that, and we'll be able to basically cut off the end wires or split the end wires out, and hold on a second, and basically pin it out into the Raspberry Pi Zero, and we'll be golden. Well, I'm actually glad that I found that this sheathing, because I found it hidden underneath something, and it wound up being exactly what I needed for this one. And so you need to make sure that all your wires are still covered up and good. Once again, the nice thing with this is the connector here, and I'll pop this back open for people to see that weren't here for one of the other streams. So our connector here, because I despise people that use proprietary pinouts that you cannot tell what's pinned where, or pins that you may or may not have unless you're in a specific industry, like DB pins here, completely different crimp connector than anything else we use in 3D printing. And then you go, well, why has it got this huge case? Well, it's got this huge case because that DB connector is connected to standard screw terminals. So if your heater core burns up or your thermistor dies, you can swap the thermistor and bring it all the way back and just screw it down onto the terminals. So, and then the next step, if you really want to get too crazy, well, this is a standard, it's a pancake, but it's a standard NEMA 17 motor. So you should be able to put EBB, 42 onto the back of this motor and run CAN bus. And then everything is on the tool head, literally. You undo your CAN bus, you remove your 4 screws, and your whole extruder comes off the front. Yeah, so your wire for your ABL does not go into this case, so just bring it out to the side. But we do want to put a zip tie around the end just for some strain relief on this. For a school, I would say a Prusa i3 Mark III, preferably one that is a factory machine. And I say that because schools have the supportability requirement, so they need to, I'll say, be able to get contract support. And if you do a self-source build, you're not going to be able to get that contract support. So I would say a standard Prusa Mark III would be best for a school environment. Now, if it's like a college class and it's an engineering class and they're using it as a test bed tinkering platform, then going on a self-build or a custom printer, that's a different equation there. But for a typical high school, for a STEM education class, you'd want something that you can get factory support on. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put our zip ties back in here. There we go. Yeah, but if it's going to be for a school, the build support would be, I think, the bigger requirement there, or having the manufacturer support, because if something went wrong, the teacher's going to need a support channel to reach out to for the school. A Rook is a good build, but I just don't think they would be able to run it as a school machine, but doing it as like a build project at the school for STEM education, I don't see why not. but I don't think the school, from a liability wise, would want to run it. All right, darn it. Trying to fish this in the hole right behind the wires where the motor goes into. Might have to go this way. Work out better that way anyhow. Oof. Oh yeah. When you do the CAN bus boards with Big Tree Tech, they provide the wires. Mello's doing the same, and it's the XT30 plus 2. So it's an XT30 connector for the power and ground, and then a 2-pin JST for the actual CAN high, CAN low. So it works out pretty well. It's a pretty simple and small wire as well, which makes life a lot easier. And with the casing that it's in, you don't need to actually sleeve it or anything, especially if you're running it in umbilical. You just leave it out the way it is and let it go. All right, so now that we've redone that for the second time, go ahead and cut those, throw this stuff away, throw a couple more on there to run it around the back side. Of course, this part here would have probably been easier with the back panel off, but one in. And the part I'm talking about is putting zip ties through here. Luckily, there's actually a decent amount of space between where the zip tie mount is and the back panel, so you can make a little bit of a loop, which makes getting the zip tie in there a little bit easier. And then, once again, all the way to the front, figure out about where your wire would be or need to be, and then you can zip tie it. Get those good and tight because they are strain relief for the umbilical. Oh, yeah. And that's the other thing is when something breaks, you're going to get a call. So if he builds them with you and he or she is on top of things, then they should be able to square it away. And if they can't, then you can be a reach back. But the other thing to be careful of with the Rook is, so something like this printer right here, all the electronics are fully enclosed. With the Rook, you got to remember those electronics are going to be sitting open on the back unless you do like a barracks or something like that. And that's the other thing you got to be careful of is, I'll say, the liability and protection requirements. That's another reason why you do things like a Prusa, is because they are CL certified and everything. So you've got some protection, some legal protection built in because they've gone through all that testing. Where doing a build like a Rook, there's just issues if somebody gets shocked, right? So that's the other thing is protection for the kids. Yeah, so in my case, Chewy, I've got to get my printers ready for the show. And since some of them will not be sitting on my table, I've got to make sure that anything that's sitting on somebody else's table, like KB3D, has a either can run off the SD card, which most of my printers are now Klippered, so that's probably not going to work. So they need to be accessible via Klipper screen because, you know, even though you've got a standard, I can put an Ender 3 on Klipper and still use the Ender 3 screen, but I've at least had issues printing that way, right? I can see the files on the SD card, but every time I try and print from it, it basically tells me to go pound sand, which is rather annoying. But, oh, and by the way, folks, when you're putting your zip ties between your umbilical and a PTFE tube, do not crank down on these. You want them to be, you know, fairly well tight, or not tight. You want them to be, yeah, just snug them up, because if you crank down on them, this PTFE tube will deform, and especially, this is a 2 millimeter inside diameter one. So if you deform it, you could add additional friction and cause an issue, especially if it was a Bowden tube. At least this is a direct drive. But if you're using the 3 millimeter inside diameter for this reverse Bowden tube, it's real easy to crush that, that tubing. So you got to be careful when you're setting these up like this, that you don't over tighten the zip ties that are holding the PTFE tube to the umbilical. Okay, so we've got that part done. So I'll say everything above the deck has been done. Let me get my tools. Whoop. Everything above the deck, but actually plugging in the cable again. So we're going to take our ABL cable and we're just going to pull it to the side. We're going to plug this back in and screw it down. Might be easier said than done. There we go. And if you're not familiar with these screw down terminal connectors, one, you want to screw both sides down. Screw them down at the same time. If you screw one down and then go to screw the other one down, the other side's already screwed down and you're at an angle and you think it's fully done and tight and it's not. So just old computer days. Let me get some tools out of the way here. And we're going to need to close the door on the printer because we're going to have to lay it down on its back. And the other thing we're going to need to do, you may have room to fish this wire through the hole over here. If you don't, then you're going to have to take your side panel off, which will suck, but you know, it's the way they route the cable. Is it goes through a little hole here on the side of this case. And what they normally tell you to do is undo the connector over here with all the cables coming from the motors and move those out of the way so that you have more access to the hole to push the wires in, but if you can get the connector in, you should be able to get the rest of the wires pushed through there. There you go. There's the one piece. And this is another reason why you want to do this with the printer turned off, because two of these wires are bare wires and you don't want to be shoving them into your electronics bay with, with the printer on. That would probably turn out very badly. I think I have them in a position where I can at least get to them. So my plan is I'm just going to lay this onto its back. Get my coffee out of the way. That way I don't have to de-spool it because I still have a spool on the side here. So this ought to work great for my back right now, but oh well. Alrighty. So there we go. And we're going to take this back plate off now. So let me bring you folks back down to earth here. Maybe bring you guys in a little bit as we start doing this. And these are all 3mm button head screws. So this is your 2mm socket, or socket, Allen wrench or what have you. Hey Pete, how are you doing, my friend? Um, I think I missed something there, Chewy. I think you're talking about your 2.4 and running multiple CAN buses. Yeah, I would love to take some of my printers like down to the local library or one of the schools. Couple of things is doing things at a school. You need to have a full background check done to be able to access the school. So yeah, so there's 6 bolts, and then you've got 2 right here. The one on the right needs to come off. These 2 actually hold this fan on, or the bracket that has that fan. So yeah, you'll have to do a full background check there, and potentially even have to go and get your fingerprints done, which shouldn't be a problem for you. I'm just saying that it might be something to be aware of too that you'll have to do before you start going in and working with kids. I'm not sure if that same requirement is there for the libraries or not. It'd be interesting to know. Oh, coffee. Coffee, 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 coffee. Okay, one more to get our fan out of the way. We'll just let that hang down there for now. And we need to try and get our wires that came through this side here. So I've got 2. And there's the third one coming the back way. I'm just going to make sure that my wire is routed sort of nicely and pulled all the way through. So that it won't get pinched by the bed as we work. So now we've got our wires. So we'll have a red and a blue that have been stripped and tinned, which is not something I really like. See if I can't move you guys over here some. So we got these red and blue that are stripped and tinned. These are going to connect to your power inputs that are coming, the 24 volt that's coming from the power supply going into the bed. They have you just plug them in there. I'm either going to cut these off and crimp them on there with these connected, or we'll figure something out. The problem is there's not a 24 volt port on this board that I've been able to locate that is not already being used that we would be able to get to. And once again, this board is a MakerBase Robin Nano version 3.2. Now there's a 3.2 board and there's a 3.3 board that's out there. And the 3.3 board, some of these pins down here at the end have been reconfigured. So you need to make sure which one you're using, because what you're going to do is remove your Z, it's the Z minus and Z plus. It's the left and right Z end stops. You'll remove those, and this will be the signal for your ABL. And then it's a 24 volt ABL, which would go in there. Now, the other thing you could potentially do is find a 5 volt ABL that will be able to plug in directly to that spot. But it all depends on what you're able to find and whether you want to use the OEM or something else. But I do know I'm not going to stick just bare wires in there. That's not going to work for me. So we'll figure something else out for connecting these 2 wires up here. And yeah, let's pull up the video and we'll watch the video to see where they want us to do this change at. So we'll go into our browser window and see if we can't find whichever one it wanted me to have on there. Oh, there we go. So this is the ABL. Going to need to do a firmware update. Download the zip. Okay, so let's go and grab the latest firmware. So we've got the Reborn 2 Auto V2 RAR. So we're going to download that. And have to drop that to a SD card. So we'll pop our SD card out of here. We'll have to get that connected to the one over there. So give me 1 second as I crawl underneath my desk and find a USB port that's not populated at the moment. And hopefully not take everything out in the process. So, okay, we're going to grab that Reborn 2 Auto RAR and move it over to our USB drive. Open it up. So the issue I had, Mod Light, was really just like the biggest issue I had was the wireless. And even with the wireless module that's on here, trying to send files back and forth with Cura has been, we'll say, interesting. Another word for it would be painful. Because it connects and disconnects occasionally, and it just makes life fun. I mean, it just is what it is, right? Once we go to Klipper with it, though, that will be a different issue. Because I know that doing Klipper to a Raspberry Pi is going to work a lot better. Okay, bear with me one as I grab that USB drive again. So we'll have that prepped and ready to go. Yeah, the music that you would hear is the actual video. It's the background music on their video. I'm assuming it's not DRM'd because it's their YouTube videos. So, hey Royal Nomi, how's it going? How's it going? Welcome on in. Your fingerprint's already done due to, yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah. Hey, Otter's Danger Den, welcome on in. Potatoes. Potatoes. So it has us plug it in, turn it on, and it will auto update. I think they actually do the firmware update, then do the physical install. I'm doing the physical install, then doing the auto update. Me at 6.5 does the other. I don't think it's going to make a difference. But what I'm kind of waiting on is for them to get a little bit ahead in the video. And you'll see that they're taking that side panel off, removing the spool, taking the side panel off, just to be able to easily get to where they can shove the wires in that hole there. And I just fitted it through there from the inside. Emotional? Uh-oh, why are you emotional, Nomi? Oh, that's right. Today's Thursday. Is your thing tomorrow or is it Saturday? I think it's tomorrow, right? At like some dark 30, like 5 a.m. So just pull that back together, and then we're going to take the bottom off, and then we'll figure out which ones we need to remove from the bottom here. We'll unplug the top two. And then our plug goes into the rear of those two sockets. Okay, that's what I needed to find out. So we're just going to pull these wires up a little bit. Then we're going to unplug the front two wires. And these will, like I said, will be the Z in-stop wires. Oh. Let me shine a little light on my dilemma. They got hot snot on them. So where are their tweezers at? Yeah, they got a little bit of hot glue on here. Not a lot. Like Creality really puts it on there. They don't put a lot on here from what I'm seeing, but there is a little bit, so just be aware. You're going to have to get in there and get some of that off to get your plugs out. Be careful, take your time. Use the light if you need to. And I'm actually going to very carefully just use a blade between the connectors. Just kind of wiggle it back and forth between those connectors. Same thing up and down. Make sure you're not heading towards a wire. Might make it a little bit easier for me to get these out now. Didn't need to reuse this socket. I would be a little more apt to just go in there a little more heavy-handed trying to get the hot snot off. There we go. There's a little bit. There we go, one out. One out. Now let's see if we can get the next one out. Let me go ahead and peel off the rest of the hot snot around that. And we need to get the next one out as well. Okay, that was a lot easier. So we've got those two connections removed. And that's where we're going to put in our single wire here. So it's going to, I'm going to try and route it through here where the rest of them went. And once again, it was on the far back one. So we'll put that in there. Right. So our single wire is, oh, you guys are still up kind of high. Let me drop you guys down here so you can see. You guys didn't say anything to me. Okay, so remove the wire from these two connectors and we put in our single wire right here. Still not. Oh, this is annoying, huh? Okay. Well, that's about as close as I can get you. Sorry, folks. Maybe. Anyhow. Yeah, so we removed the one right above this white one here where my finger's at. And then the second one, and then that's where we put our single wire at. Then once again, our other two wires are black and red. We're going to connect into the power up here at the front. So we'll need to figure out how to do that nicely. And I'm going to put some forked connectors on it. Glad I looked because one of those is kind of undone a bit. So we're going to put some forked connectors on these. And we'll add those underneath the black and the red. Where my crimper's at. I should say where the right crimper's at. Exactly, Nomi. It's one of those things where they want you there like an hour and a half, 2 hours early so that they've got time to get everything prepped and checked and all that good stuff. So it always feels like it's way too early. So what I'm going to do, because these are really, really thin wires, and I don't like that these are 10, I'm going to snip the ends off and then strip those back just a little bit. Well, not just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is actually double them over. So I'll strip off actually a lot and then I'll double them over on themselves. So there's a little bit more meat that will crimp on. So that hopefully the crimp will work a little bit better. So once again, I'm just going to take my wire, give it a little twist to bring everything together, and then fold it over on itself just to give it a little bit more thickness for when we put on our connector and crimp it down. Okay. And then like everything else, we're going to do the pull test to make sure that it's crimped on there well. We'll do the same thing on this other one. And then I'll have to start the video again to figure out which color goes where. I would hope the red goes with the red, but we're going to double check that. Take off a little bit more. Yeah, so the build plate on this is 325 by 325 by 350 is the build volume. The Ender 5 Plus is actually a larger build volume. And I'll say you have a pathway for upgrades of the 0G kind for that. Now they don't have, I'll say there's a couple of different people that have done enclosures, but there's not a full enclosure setup from 0G for the Ender 5 Plus. That's been blessed as part, it's user mods, right? But if you're primarily doing open air, then I would say if you're comfortable, get an Ender 5 Plus off of eBay, right? You can get them for, under $300 normally. And then, as you get the opportunity of the funds and the time to do upgrades, then you can do your upgrades and do like a 0G Mercury 1. So do the top end and get rid of the V-wheels and go to linear rails. Right. And then if you want to, like I said, I didn't have a need to for my Ender 5 bed. It worked great the way it was. But if you feel you have a need to, or a desire to, or a want to, then you can go ahead and take the next step and do a Hydra bed setup and get the kinematic bed, goodness. So there are options there going that route. Okay, so let's take a look at our video and see what's next for our wires. So blue at the top, red on the bottom. So blue's going to ground and red's going to red, which would be power. And see, he just took what didn't even look like 10 wires, it just looked like stranded wires, and shoved it underneath there. No, please do not, I'll say it again, do not do that. I mean, to me, that's a fire waiting to happen, doing it that way. Whoops, but once again, blue wire on the top. So I may bring you guys over here a bit. I really wish I had a light that I could set up over here. I wonder if I can get this to go through there. Just to add some light for y'all. That might work if I don't knock it over or put my hand in the way, which I'm going to do. But we're going to undo the top two wires. I'm actually going to undo this one. I don't know if you guys can see. I will actually bring you in closer to hopefully see if you can see that. But you see how this third wire down here, the other red wire, is partially not under the terminal or under the screw. So I'm going to fix that right now, because had I noticed that when I was in here the last time, I would have fixed it. That's not good. Make sure that your wires are properly seated in here. And I thought I got all of that checked out when I was in here when we did the build. Apparently I did not. So please, please, please double check. I mean, the screw terminal itself was at least tight, but the forked connector was not fully engaged. And that's never good. So red will go underneath here. And what I'm going to do, since the existing wire is sitting like this, I'm going to put this underside and slip it in underneath, or at least attempt to try to slip this in underneath the existing spade terminal. Yeah. And I think it's just going to be easier to pop that out, bring this around, pop that in. Up and pop that one in the top of it. This still would have been easier if they had a like a 24 volt spot on the board that you could pull from other than the actual power poles. And that would be the one thing, desire of if we had the time and we really wanted to, we could go in here and swap this motherboard out for something else. But I'm just going to live with this motherboard because there's nothing wrong with it. And put that up here. And we can put Klipper on this motherboard. So we'll put Klipper on this motherboard. And we will try to make sure that both those are in there nice and good. We'll switch this over to Klipper on Saturday. We'll start doing some pre-work today. I kind of pulled that out some. I want to do it other way. Put this down and that way. Sorry about that. So yeah, we're going to do a little prelim work today to start getting things ready for Klipper. And by prelim work, what I'm going to talk about is we're going to start prepping a Raspberry Pi Zero because I want to add it in here before we close up the bottom. So hopefully we won't have to keep getting back in here again. So our power connections are now made. They look to be all good and solid. These two wires will not be needed anymore, so we're just going to kind of tuck them away in there. We will need to do some wiring when we put our Raspberry Pi in here, and I'm just going to set the Raspberry Pi 0. We're going to put it in a case, and we're just going to VHB tape it right here on the inside, and then we'll take our wires up, and there is a, let me see if I can locate it for you all. There is a TFT header in here. If I can find it. Yes. So there's a 4-wire connector right here under the edge of this plate, and that's 5-volt ground, transmit and receive. So we'll take that and bring it to our Raspberry Pi, and we'll be using UART 3 for this board. And we'll actually download the right firmware. So when we load the right firmware on this board, it'll already have the config for UART, and we'll be able to do other stuff that way. So before we come back in here and actually put things up, what I need to do is bring you guys over here so that we can do a little bit of soldering. So what we've got is a Raspberry Pi 02, and I've just cut 2 pieces of header pin that we're going to need to go ahead and God, English sometimes again. We're gonna have to solder these on here, and I found one of the easiest ways to do soldering of header pins is just to take a breadboard. Now this one actually has a project still on it from another tinkering day, but if I take my pins and stick them down in here, I can seat them down fully. Put my board on here. Now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put some solder flux on here, because this is going to make life easier when I do my soldering. And I'm just going to take and put a line right down both rows of pins. And then I'll stick the pin, I'll stick it on the pins. And that way when I go to solder, my solder will nicely stay on the holes in the pins, and I'll get some nice solder joints relatively easily. Now, technically, you can look at this and say, but you only need like 4 pins to do your thing. Why are you going to put full headers on it? Because in order to do the screen, once again, we're going to have to repin the screen over to our Raspberry Pi, which means we're going to need to have access to a lot more pins than just those 4. So what I'm doing is just lining up the pins on there like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the 2 or the 4 end ones to get it seated, so to speak. And then I'll go through and do all the ones in the middle. We need to get our solder set up. Let me see if I can get me a little bit more room over here. While that warms up, grab some coffee, check on chat. Yeah, bigger build volumes are nice. I like being able to do my helmets and stuff. In fact, we've got a helmet going downstairs right now on the Ender 5 Plus that's turned 0G. So yeah, I like the ability to be able to do helmets on a whim or other large cosplay pieces. I've got somebody that's asking right now on a different channel for some support to do a. So what I'm going to do now is, I know I'm like, my hands are going to be in the way. Let's see if I can do this reverse-handed. Apply a little bit of heat to the pen and the solder pad. And I've got a little bit of solder there, but I'm just going to add a little bit more. And by using the flux, it's actually going to wick it right down into the hole and keep it nice on the, come on, darn it. There we go. It'll wick it down on the hole or down in the hole and keep it from sticking all over the place. And it should give you a nice clean solder joint. And I just had to touch that up with using my right hand because, well, I'm right-handed. Those are two nice clean solder joints. And when we're done, we'll be able to take just a little bit of alcohol and wipe that off to clean off any residual flux. And once again, like I said, I'll be able to do just both ends. And once I get both ends done, then I can come back in and do the rest. Without a problem. And I've actually seen people come in here with the thicker soldering irons and just basically run straight down the line because the solder won't bridge. Between the posts. I'll say I've never been that good at soldering, but I am getting better. The more you do it, the better you will be. And the better your solder joints will be. So definitely, if you get a chance to do electronics projects and you have a chance to do some soldering, do it. Especially since some of these boards, like these Raspberry Pis, are starting to come without the headers. And you may need to do some headers down the road. You get done and just take a quick gander at your work. If any of them need to be retouched up, just hit them again with a little heat and apply a little bit more solder and you'll be good to go. And really, a lot of my soldering techniques and stuff like that comes from watching other people on YouTube that have been soldering for a lot longer than me. And I know my buddy Evil Diesel did high reliable soldering in the military, and he looks at me and kind of cringes. He's looked at some of my soldering and been like, "Okay, young airman." I'm like, "I'm not a young airman anymore." He's like, "Well, you solder like one." Uh, all right, so I think we're good. I'm not seeing any solder bridges. I do see one that's kind of a little gloopy there, so got a little bit more heat into it. Pull some solder off of it. And that's the nice thing with using the flux is that solder is going to flow. And if you need to remove it, you can remove it. Or if you're going to tin a pad, it will tin the pad and stay right on the pad. It's not going to come off the pad, and it won't go on anything else. So there we go. We've got one set of headers on there. And like I said, we should be able to go in easily enough with a little bit of alcohol on a paper towel and dab onto that and clean that excess flux off just to make it look pretty. But all of our pins, I'm going to call that passable. I guarantee every single one of them are going to work. Even the one that still looks like I got a little bit of excess solder on it. Let's hit that again. Wick a little bit of it off and down into the hole a bit. Just like that. And now we've got a Raspberry Pi 2 that we're ready to do a mainsail install on and get it sitting down in our set it back in the printer. I printed a case out for it already, so all we have to do is just set it in there. I'm not trying to get it all connected and talking today because we're still Marlin, right? We're still playing in Marlin land. We're not switching from Marlin today, but I just want to get this in there so I don't have to keep going back and forth in and out of the printer as much, because every time you go into the printer, it's more chance of kludging something up. And like I said, I printed it's a snap fit case for it. So it's just a simple thing of getting your connectors in the right spot, pushing it down in there, and then putting the cap on it. Now, before I put the cap on, I do want to try and put a heat sink on it. So I need to go find those. Move you guys back over here. Let me check chat real fast. Yep, there you go. Comgrow has some pretty good deals. I've also found that Solval, for whatever reason, is doing refurb like enders as well. So you might be able to get some from there. So let's see. We're going to try and find my box of heat sinks. All right, maybe we won't put a heat sink on it just yet. Where I expected them to be, they are not. Because they're sitting right next to it in plain view. If it was a snake, they would have bit me. So I've got a set of just, I don't know, commodity heat sinks to include these little copper ones that are good if you're going to do some active cooling. But if you're not, if you're going to do passive, you want to use one like this. And you've got like a low profile and a high profile one. It just depends on what size your case will support. So I'm just going to stick that one on there, try and flip my case on it and see if it'll fit. And if it's going to go right up against the printed part, which I believe it will, then I won't use that one because I don't want to transfer the heat directly to the printed part, even though it's ABS. So we'll use the lower profile one. Let's see. Oh, I know, but yeah, like I said, he was doing high reliability soldering for special parts of the Air Force, so he likes to give me that, and he was my airman, so I was his boss at one time, so any chance he gets to give me a ration, he will. And it's all good. All good. Just give that a little bit of a press. We'll go ahead and put our case on. This is a ventilated case, so it'll allow some airflow through it. We can still get to all the connectors. And we're going to mount it just kind of right there, so we can still get to our jumpers that we'll need to when we go to actually pin out the screen. So I guess we will have to get back in here again to pin out the screen, but yeah, I may wind up doing that off stream and then just kind of showing the results. But I do want to move this just a little bit in from the edge, and I'm just going to put this down here with some VHB tape. Aim for the seat, Chair Force. Yes, sir, all the way. Like I said, I will not deny my Chair Force heritage. My brother and his wife were Marines, and they try and give me crap all the time. And I'm like, I don't know why you're trying to give me crap. I deployed out with AC and good living conditions. You deployed out with a tent and a rifle. So I don't know, who had the bad idea there, but I don't think I did. So I'm going to use 2 pieces of VHB tape on here, so I should never ever be able to get this off apparently, because this will be that good VHB tape that we used on our borons. Oh yeah, he gives me crap all the time. My brother used to sit here and give me crap of, oh, you're Chair Force, you're this, you're that. And actually, when I first went in, he was telling me how stupid I was for going into the military, and then he went into the Marine Corps, and I'm like, wait a minute, I went into the Air Force, and I'm the stupid one? So the other thing, before I forget, I do have a 32 gig SanDisk card here. I'm just going to pop that in my USB-C adapter that I have for my Mac, and I'm going to put that over here on the Mac, and we're going to put Mainsail OS on it using the Raspberry Pi imager. And we've run through doing that before on stream, as well as I think several creators have. You basically go into choose OS, say other specific purpose, 3D printing. We're going to do mainsail and 32-bit. Choose a storage device and make sure you grab the right storage device. You don't want to overwrite your laptop because that would be bad. As this is an actual Raspberry Pi, can't talk and type my password at the same time. You can go in and set up, your host name and your Wi-Fi and everything at this point. So I would highly suggest doing that now while you can. Don't forget to change your country because it defaults to Great Britain. Set your locale. And say save and write. Now we just wait for that to go. I wanted to get this started and actually do the soldering, but apparently I didn't think through it when I was doing it. You see 2 pins I don't have enough solder on? Hopefully it's the 2 pins that I don't need instead of 2 pins that I do need. We'll take another look. I think there's one that could use a tad bit more solder on, so we'll go fire up the soldering iron again and add just a little bit more on that one. Oh yeah, and that would be an important pin to have good solder joint on too, because it's the ground pin. And all the others look good. I just got a couple of, I'll say, crowns that we'll try and get rid of. Yep, they all look good. Yeah, fix stuff now rather than later. You're right. Thanks for the alert, John Strand. When you replace the heater cartridge and thermistor, can you help me find them to get printing hotter than my stock thermistor and heater? Because you're not ready yet to run the higher thermistor and heater right now. Yeah, basically what you would look for is a higher wattage heater. So you need to make sure most of your heater cartridges will be like 12 volt or 24 volts. So you need to get the right voltage. And then there will be like a 40 watt heater, a 50 watt heater, a 60 or 65 watt heater. So make sure you got the right voltage. And then the higher wattage will give you more amps and power draw, which will heat up quicker and higher. And then if you're getting above 300, you're definitely going to want to go to a PT100 or PT1000 thermistor. Yes, Britt, we've got our Dunkin' coffee. We did get the Dunkin' run today, so I've got donut holes sitting downstairs waiting for me after the stream. And welcome on in. So what we've done, Britt, is we laid the printer down on its side because we added the magnet to the glass build plate so that we could add our PEI sheet, and we installed the OEM's the Flying Bear auto bed leveling sensor. And we needed to route that around and down through the back and come into the side of our case over here, top right of your screen. And we had to pull 2 wires, and these are our 2 Z end stops. So we had to cut the hot snot, the hot glue off, pull these 2 out, put our signal wire in, and then we also added crimps and added our power connectors in for the 24 volt power that goes to the ABL sensor. And down the road, if we wind up really not liking this ABL sensor, we'll switch over to like a BL Touch and get back in here and do some rewiring again if we need to. And so now that what we did was we took our Raspberry Pi 02 and we added some headers onto it. So we had to solder our headers on. So we did some soldering on here. Don't worry about the solder down here. It is all on a pogo pad, so it's not shorting anything. I'd have to get some wick out to wick that off, but it's no big deal. So we now have all of our header pins on here. So we're going to be able to sit this down in here in our case, and we'll VHB this. Using VHB tape, we will adhere it to the inside of our case here, and we'll be able to run connectors up to the TFT pins on the board so that when we go to install Klipper on this, which we're downloading and installing Mainsail on an SD card right now. It's like, why is that still sitting there waiting to write? And it's waiting for me to put in credentials. So now it's writing. The point is we'll be able to get our, we'll have this already set up. We're going to flash Marlin right now, so it'll just sit here and kind of do nothing. But we'll be able to log into it because it will draw power. And we'll be able to have our path to Klipper ready. So hopefully we won't have to keep getting underneath here. Is kind of what we're at, or what we're trying to do. Yeah, so I'm trying to just step through this. So we did the PEI sheet and the ABL, and we're going to flash to the newer version of Marlin from the vendor. Then what we're going to do in the next step, which will be Saturday, is we'll see how we've been printing over the last couple of days, but the ultimate goal is to take this to Klipper. Right? That is our ultimate goal. And with that, we will have to get back underneath here because you can repin the cables on the screen here. Basically what we'll do is we'll take the cables out here. We will just trim the ends off, and we'll pin them out with DuPont connectors, and we'll have to plug them into certain positions on the on our Raspberry Pi, and we'll be able to run the touch screen using as a Klipper screen, because I've seen it done. So we'll make that happen, but we'll do that on a Saturday stream where we've got a lot more time to play around with it. But today we're getting close. Let me grab some jumper wire, because I do have some of that. And I'm not going to worry per se about color here. I'm just going to look at 4 short wires that I already have available, because I've already peeled them apart. And that's 5. I don't need 5. I just need 4. So we'll just leave one of these spare for now. So what we'll do is power ground. So you could use 5 if you had 2 5-volt inputs to pull from, which technically we probably do. I can pull an extra 5-volt. But what you're going to do is, looking at your Raspberry Pi like this, top row is 5-volt, 5-volt, ground, transmit, receive. Okay? So you're going to take 4 wires and you're going to put on those top 4 pins. So for those, you're going to skip the first pin, and then you're going to put in 4 wires. And that'll be your 5-volt, ground, transmit, receive. So when you go into your other connector, what you're going to be looking for is what's 5-volt and ground. 5-volt goes to 5-volt, ground goes to ground, and then you reverse your transmit, receive. Okay? So let me see. I think I've got the pinout diagram over here. Nope, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. I thought I had the pinout diagram. That's the screen. Ah, here we go. So, okay, that's a different board layout. And that's what I was talking to you guys about. You got to be careful and make sure you get the right version of the board. So I'm going to physically look at the cables, at the silk screen. And we are 5-volt is closest to the wireless module, then ground, then transmit and receive. So I know that this is 5-volt, ground, transmit, receive. So if I hold it just like this, and excuse that first wire, 5-volt, ground, and then I need to reverse these. So this is my 5-volt, blue is my ground. This is the transmit and receive coming from my Pi. So I just need to reverse those. So if I stack these like that, I should be able to plug this directly in, and then we can just set our Pi down. So under the river, through the woods, south we go. Those 4 lined up, and get my flashlight again. Okay, so there are 4 wires. Let me see if I can bring you guys a little bit closer. So we've got our, where are we at? Oh yeah. So here's our 4 wires right here. Trying to get to the angle. And some light without a big reflection would help. But these are our 4 wires going into the TFT. I really need to get some better camera and some better angles here, but what I will do is see if I can't take a picture and we'll post a picture. And so once again, make sure that my 4 wires are there, grab my case. Am I tying my case correctly? Flip this around one way or the other. Make it pretty. Oh, well, that stinks. All right, we know which order it goes in. We'll put our cover on here, which we technically don't necessarily need, but we got it nonetheless. 4 pins, nice and tidy. There we go. So we'll place this right in here. We'll take our VHB strips off. And we'll get our case put in there. Maybe. What do I get for cutting my fingernails yesterday? Darn it. Probably don't need you guys on close-up as I struggle trying to pull VHB backing off. But I did just see or hear that my Raspberry Pi disk has completed its imaging. So and like I said, I'm leaving this other cable in here as a just in case. And that just in case is if I take any type of power errors, like not having enough power, if I get anything that I feel may be a power related issue, I can always plug this in and find another 5-volt source, which would be from a like an end stop that I could pull a 5-volt source from. But all right, so that's good. We should be able to shut that off, pull this out. The SD card in. I should have did this before we put this in here. Probably would have been easier. Or move this down a little bit more so I wasn't going to fight the little metal tab here. There we go. Now, one thing I want to do before I do too much more, I am going to put this fan back up, and then we're going to power it on where it's at, just to make sure that we don't have any issues, no sparky sparks or anything like that. Hey, Nick, how's it going? That one's short. What about this one? Is this a little bit longer? That one's a little bit longer. Okay. So we're going to do the 1, 2, 3, and we're going to make sure that we don't have any magic smoke. Is everybody looking with me? Need everybody to be eyes on so we can make sure we're not going to get any magic smoke here. All right. 1, 2. You guys ready to clip this just in case? 3, 2, 1, on. Well, shucks. Nothing came popping out. Okay, so we do have a light on the motherboard or the MCU board. So we do have power there. We've got light here still. Bring you guys around so you can see. We just got a beep, and that's because it's updating the firmware. So I didn't even think about doing that. So it is going through and updating the firmware because we had that installed. And the assets it's updating is the touchscreen GUI assets. Sorry about that. Some fonts. Adding new things. All right, mod light sounds good. Take it easy. And like I said, welcome on in, Nick. Sorry for the jitteriness. We got the printer sitting on its back on the table, so I don't really have a... I guess this would be a good time to have an overhead camera set up one of these days. Okay, so it looks like the printer is back up and running. Tool, we'll check and make sure it's still up on the Wi-Fi, so that's good. There, in-stop leveling. So we've got X is open, Y is open, Z is open, material detection. And we'll have to do some looking. We'll have to follow our video to see what else we need to do. So let's get that started, and I'll continue to hold you guys and gals up here. So I'm going to jump back just a bit because remember they did they started off by doing the firmware update. So the about. So we see Auto V2. Is that the right firmware? Well, they were showing Auto V1. We're Auto V2 because I guess we have a newer version than what they had. Whoops. God, that glare is bad. Sorry about that. But yeah, we should have the right firmware in there. We should be set up right and everything. What I am going to do is let me go ahead and put the bottom panel on. I'm going to go ahead and shut the printer off. We'll put the bottom panel on and put it upright and check everything out. Guess we'll follow some instructions. Why not, right? Have I mastered the hex key twirl? No, because I have not used the hex keys per se in a long while. I use my Fabrico hex key set or my Bond Haas. So yeah, I don't have the hex key twirl down pat anymore. And I try and get a few of these in before I start trying to secure any one side down just to make sure that I don't warp the panel when I'm trying to put it in. Because it is a thin piece of sheet metal. And I know at least the one on the Ender 5 was hellacious to get all of them in right. If you tighten any one down before you got all of them at least initially put on. Yeah, these are pretty nice. I like them. I know the big rage these days are like the LTT ratcheting screwdrivers, and I'm not that big of a, that or an electric one. I put the Hoda, because I've heard a couple of them have, we'll say, just issues with torque and stuff. And I think a lot of people have been talking about the Hoda lately. And I put that in my Amazon cart like 3 times. And I just can't bring myself to, like, I don't need it. And I do have to be careful because I have a spool over here on the other side, still in the spool holder. But I'm going to slide this towards me. Use the table to basically rotate it around and lift it back up. Oh, there we go. This is a beast of a printer. This thing pretty much goes the entire depth of my shelf. So let's go ahead and get her plugged back in, and we'll turn her on. Put some things away while it's booting up. Like I said, we've got the We've got the Raspberry Pi down there installed. It should come up on the network at some point, so we should be good there. We'll check that a little bit later, but right now what I wanted to do was make sure that we were good. It looks like we're good on the firmware version. We're going to come back over here to the kind of see where our next steps are. Install the filament sensor, which we did. Says to do a home all. I'm kind of a little hesitant, so let me grab a piece of metal, and I think we're going to go through the whole leveling process again. But I'm going to grab a piece of metal, and when I say home, I'm going to try and trigger it early. There goes X and Y. Goes over to the middle. Peg starts down, and I'm going to trigger it early. And that's all I wanted to do, is make sure that it levels first before I tell it to say go, and it goes to like Z negative China, and we damage the build plate. So now that we know that the build plate will work, one thing I want to do before I get too far in here is to clean this, because we didn't clean it earlier. We may still go and do I'll probably take it off stream and take it downstairs and do a full, like wash it with Dawn dish soap to make sure that all grease and stuff was off of it. And just give this a good wipe down. This is a double-sided textured build plate. So it's going to tell us to crank down, and we're basically going to re-level the bed again. So I'm going to go ahead and crank all of these down. Yeah, but I agree, Nick. Hex drivers are so much nicer. I mean, I can in a pinch, because there are times where you just need to use, like we had to use those doing the set screws when we were doing the assembly process, just because you couldn't get in there with a driver. But okay, so we screwed everything down. I'm pretty sure it's going to tell us to do a home, so I'll go ahead and get that started. I'm going to bring you guys in here a little bit closer. Yep, and then we'll go through and we'll do the whole leveling process. That's pretty nice. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but it does blip right here on the front when it triggers. I'm not sure how loud that music is, by the way. Now I'm curious as to why it's having you manually move the motors instead of doing the standard leveling sequence. Print head will return to the home position, yes. Oh, well, that would be why, because it no longer does the four corners. So basically what you have to do is go to your move. Now that we've homed, and we're going to turn off the motors so that we can move it around, and we're just going to have to manually move it to the four corners, which would be right above our wheels. Okay, so front two are done. Now we're going to go to the back two. And what you're seeing me do is I'm initially, I'll say, cracking both sides at the same time, because it could be that you have to loosen one side enough to where the spring will just start freewheeling, or the wheel will start freewheeling because there's not enough tension left on the spring, because the other two sides, or it's a spring issue. If you loosen only one out of 4 points, then that's the only thing that'll move, and at some point it'll be the three constrained points will still be constrained to the point that it'll hold down the bed still, so you have to undo a couple of them at the same time. Okay, so there's round one. Now I'm going to pull it forward, and I'm moving again, so a lot better. And you got to do this 2 to 3 times, because every time you move one of the corners, it will affect all 4 corners. So by doing it multiple times, you'll actually be able to dial it in a lot better. Okay, so now that we've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and rehome. And then I'm going to go into, yeah, the music. The music's pretty funny. It is pretty interesting. it kind of feels like that little 8-bit moved up to 16-bit sound. Okay, so now we're going to go into Tools, Leveling, Confirm. It'll do a home. All right, then we're going to do a start and let it do a full bed mesh. And once it meshes the bed, then we'll do the Z offset in the center with the paper. And that should give us the initial Z offset, and then we'll be able to start with the doing another test print or a first print and get it squared away. Hey folks, yeah, this is a 325 by 325 by 350 build volume. And yes, I'm gonna love when we put Klipper on this bad boy, because this goes like molasses. Yeah, that is actually sped up video right there. Either that or they have a specific firmware on theirs that's just kicking it into high gear. Because this is going to take a little bit doing it this way. Let me raise you guys back up, because we should be ready, shortly to start another print. And I've got a couple of prints on the SD card that we can use. So you're going to see my setup back here. I think it's doing like what? A 6x6. So it's doing 36 probe points, and it looks like it's probing like 3 times per location. So yeah, this is going to take a while. Hopefully we only have to do this every once in a blue moon. What printer or printers am I bringing to Murph? The plan today is, here, let's see if I can't switch my camera view. Yep, that's the one. So we got the Reborn down in the bottom right. So the plan is Kyber Dragon is going to go. This is the Voron 2.4, the LDO Voron 2.4 kit. The 0G Mercury 1 is going to go. This is going to go down and sit at KB3D's booth again. The Voron Trident is going to go. So both Vorons are definitely going to sit on my table, unless LDO says he wants one at his table. But this is the one that's got my vinyl logos on it that KB3D Chris cut for me. All 3 of my Rooks are going to go. The Rook 2020, I think, is going to sit at Chris's table as well. Hey, Chris, see, speak of the devil. My Rook 2020 is probably going to sit at Chris's table as well, because it's a black and orange scheme, which tends to go well with KB3D's color scheme. I hear he likes orange for some reason. I have a Fabrico Rook, and I've got my Rook Mark I Gold Dragon, which was built, self-source built. And that one has a Revo CR hot end in it. And I never got anything back from E3D, but I know that they were looking for people that are running Revos. And of course, both my Vorons and my 0G are running Revos. And still, for whatever reason, I'm still working on the Z offset on this one, but we do have some coins being printed out on various machines in different colors. So we will have some coins available at the show. This is printed solid red. So, yep. Evil Diesel made these up for me, so I'm starting to print out a bunch of these so that we can have them at the show. And right now I'm just working on tidying up some of the other printers. And by tidy up, I mean the ones that are supposed to have Klipper screen on them, get the Klipper screens put on them, and get them ready to go. I need to get a Klipper, well, I've got all the software and I've got all the parts printed. I just need to put the Klipper screen on the 0G back here. I had it all ready for Murph and I never put it on there because what I have to do is take the bottom plate off and take the front skirt off and then mount the Klipper screen on it. So it's just more of, I need to get off my butt and do it. But yeah. And like I said, this thing is going slow as molasses. And with this being Marlin firmware, I don't have an easy way of making it go faster right now. But Saturday, when we put Klipper on this, it will be going faster. And the nice thing is I've already started setting up an Orca slicer profile for it as well. Because me and Kira are like oil and water right now. Though I did finally at least start getting something to print on it decently. Because I'm printing, the blue ones here are on the this Reborn 2. So I am getting some good prints off of this. But I am not a Cura guy, and I've figured out a lot of things on Orca Slicer. So it's more of a happier place for me right now. Hey, look at that. We finally got a bed done, or the initial bed mesh. And I'm seeing, let's see. The distance between the nozzle and platform, about the thickness of a sheet of A4 paper, which you can adjust up or down using Z offset. Yep, confirm that. Let's see, my lowest reading was 0.07, like negative 0.07. The highest reading was negative 0.40, so 0.3 something difference in the readings. So we're going to do the Z offset now. And just standard Z offset. It was 5 millimeters high, so we're dropping it back down to get it close. And kind of see where I'm at here. All right. And that's the thing, is you start moving it down gently, gently. And when it starts to get tight, you just drop it down to the next, like from 1 to 0.1. And when that starts getting close, then you go to 0.01. so that you can fine tune it in a lot. All right, I like that. So let me say move and bias some distance, and we'll start a print, and we'll see what that print does. So printing, we'll do a digital dragon coin. And we'll see. We may have to make a couple of more adjustments, but first show I don't have to print anything. I'm bringing things for Sparta's booth and some treats. Exactly. Like the first show, you don't necessarily have to bring anything. I'm trying to bring things because this is my first Earth, but we're trying to do something a little bit more each show until we get fully established, I'll say. Though I will say, sorry, I got distracted there. I will say that words, yeah, just words. Thank you for the follow, Mini Bice. Mini by Ice. Okay. I think I pronounced that right, if I can read it right. Welcome on in. Thank you for coming in and giving the follow. So, for Murph, we had certain things set up. For Earth, we're trying to do things we're trying to be a little bit better in our presentation, I'll say. We're going to have some printer signage for each one of our printers. I know that doesn't really, there we go. That shows like some background on the printer. So we'll have printer signage up. We're going to have some death racers, some drag racers. We're going to have some stickers and some other coins or prints for this show since we're going to have our own table. I do have some tablecloths to kind of hide some of the, I'll say, the excess and the foot lockers and stuff that we'll drag everything in with. We'll have those. We'll have a tablecloth on the table and make it a little bit nicer presentation. So just try to do some little things, and then once we get set up, then it'll be more of just refining some things here and there. But yeah, slowly but surely. And then Rocky Mountain, I'm still trying to debate whether I want to even try and bring anything out there, or if that'll be I'm going to walk the floor show, or maybe go and, if KB3D Chris goes out there, maybe I'll go out and sit at his table and learn to run some things at his table for a little bit. Who knows? But we're almost up to temp, which is good. And I am going to get into the menu so I can check the Z offset and go higher or lower if need be as it starts to print. Okay. A little bit too low. Still too low. Getting a little bit closer. And I will definitely need to let this do like a second layer before I even try and peel it up, because whenever you get, I'll say, too low, you will need to have a second or third layer to give you something to help pull that first layer off of a print or a textured sheet. Otherwise, it just becomes a major pain in the butt. And yeah, I think our first layer is looking a lot better now. Let me try and bring you guys in a little bit closer. I'm going to pause and then bring you guys over here for a little close up. So you see when we started, we were way too low and we were getting a lot of ridges, and then we raised it up slowly. And I'd say we're pretty good now over on this ending side. So we should be good to go for, and with Marlin, that that Z offset will stay there. So we'll just keep going on the print. And like I said, we'll need to let this go at least a couple of layers so we'll be able to try and peel that up. And then we'll stop it and restart it so we can get a good print going. But you need something that is a little bit bigger than a very small test print to be able to try and get a first layer going good. So I tend to try and do like 120 by 120 millimeter cube or larger, depending on the size of the build plate. And I mean, 120 by 120 is a good, I'll say, size, because you'll be able to see and adjust it without it taking way too long. And then like a 1 millimeter height will get you, what, 5 layers? So it should be a pretty quick print, and it should give you enough that you'll be able to, enough time to adjust your Z height to the final, as well as, be able to, like in this case where it was a little bit too close to start with, you'll be able to still have some meat there to peel it up off the sheet when it cools down. Oops. So how's everybody doing tonight? Chris, did you make any more progress on the black box? And have you set up all 5 tool heads already, or are you just really working on the 2? I guess I should say, is your plan to have all 5 tool heads working at the show? Okay, so you're going to try and do different different type of tool heads on there. Oh, thanks, Mini Vice. Yeah, so I've got more printers than you think, because like I said, I've got right now. I have to keep moving things around. But let me do a little bit of a tour while this continues to go. So we've got our Elegoo Mars 2 sitting over here. So I do have the ability to do resin printing as well. I've got Blue Dragon, which is an Enderwire conversion. Red Dragon, which is also an Enderwire conversion. A Prusa Mark IV. This is a Mark III with a MMU unit on it that's plugged into the rep wrap box down here. We also have a Voron V0 over on the side and a Tivo Tarantula down here in this mess. A baby belt or two. We've got underneath my desk right now, there's two of the rooks, a rook on top of the desk, an ender under the desk that these are all printers I have to keep moving around every time I reconfigure for a stream. So I have room to walk around without breaking my neck. Downstairs, I have an Ender 3 belt printer. So it's an Ender 3 converted to a belt printer that we did on stream. I've got a Prusa Mini, and I've got a Ender 5 Plus converted to a 0G just without the enclosure. And that one, do I have the ability to pop that up on the screen? Yes, it looks like I do. Maybe. Not that. This. There we go. So that one that's now on the bottom left of your screen is in the process of printing a Dark Trooper helmet in Cosplay B, Polymaker Cosplay B. Yeah, Nick, my wife's pretty adamant that I not come home with as many printers as I leave with. However, I am picking up a Ender 3 Core XY kit from Scott, Edge 3D. And that's made by Additiva 3D. So that's taking a Ender 3 and turning it into a Core XY printer. So we will be doing that. I'm going to be talking with KB3D Chris about doing a black box build on my stream. If he is willing to work with me on that. And I'm sure I will find something else to get my I'm sure I will find something else to get myself in trouble with while I'm out there. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is I'm still trying to find that Raspberry Pi that we put in here. It should have power and it should be up on the network if everything worked right. So I'm just looking for it right now. And the only one I'm seeing I'm not expecting to see. It was nice. Put an IP address in, and while you're waiting for it to come up, you put your finger on the mouse pad and it shuts it off. Yeah, so that Raspberry Pi is not coming up on the network. So I'm going to I'll have to play with that off stream and try and figure out why it's not coming up. Yeah, because everything else, yeah, I'll have to play with that later. That's the problem with Raspberry Pis is sometimes they come up, sometimes they don't. So I'll have to work on that and figure it out. You got to start playing on that huge Voron printer too? Yes, yes. I tell you what, so the Voron 2.4 back here, Fey Dragon, I won the parts at Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Fest, the printed parts from the Voron team, right? So that set the color scheme for this printer, and I bought the frame from Tensor 3D while I was there. I bought a Trident frame and a 2.4 frame because I got 2 frames for $40 because they didn't want to take them home. And they were B stock. So I'm good with that. This 2.4 was then, I got most of the parts for this one from Tensor 3D. A lot of the parts for this one came from KB3D. And a lot of the parts from this one came from KB3D. Right? So, yeah, I've been pretty happy with them. But building the LDO 4 on 2.4 kit down here, Kyber Dragon, yeah, LDO kits are on a whole nother level. They just are. They're on a whole nother level. And now I see why everybody talks good stuff about those kits. Now, they only do the 300 and 350s. I don't think LDO does the 250 kits. Or if they do, they don't do them in large quantity because a lot of people, if they're going to do a Voron, they're going to do a 3 or 350 build. Right? Most people just don't do the 250 size. So, and then like I said, this is 325 by 325 by 350 in height. And then my Ender 5 Plus downstairs is 370 by 370 by 420. So that's my big boy that I normally do full-size helmets in one shot. So, and at some point, I may consider trying to do a custom printer size. It's like a 300 by 600, using 2 300 by 300 build plates. But it won't have, it won't be like hugely high. It'll be a standard height. But the goal of that printer would be able to do things like chest pieces in one piece rather than have to break it up and then reassemble them. Because there's always misalignments in the reassembly because everything's printed and they cool down at different rates depending on how they're supported, whether they're supported heavily or not so heavily. They may shrink and warp at different rates on the print, and it just makes it hard. A lot more work when you're trying to put them back together. So, yeah. So apparently I've decided to let this continue to go. Pretty fast print when you're doing just one of these. When I start doing like full plates, it takes a little bit more. And actually on things like Kyber Dragon back there, I'm actually, I was having some I don't want to say layer adhesion, but my layers were, I'll say, a little thin. It just wasn't, I wasn't getting some good adhesion and stuff. And I forgot that for whatever reason, it's printed solid Jesse filament back there. And I always have to run it hot. And I also forgot that that particular printer, no, wait a minute, that one does not have a obsidian nozzle in it. So I keep forgetting, on my hardened nozzles that I need to also increase it. So that one right now, I'm running that printed solid Jesse at 230. So that's PLA, but I'm running it at 230, and I'm running it fairly fast. So I need to run the higher temps. And then the ABS that I'm running over here, I'm actually running it at 260 and running a little bit faster speeds. And that way I'm still getting good extrusion and not running into, I'm not overrunning the extruder. So Chris, so pen plotters, I'm sure you could do something like a cutting knife on your tool head changer, like a spring-loaded vinyl cutter blade, possibly even potentially a laser as well. Have you thought about doing anything like that? So the helmet that you're currently seeing going in the bottom left corner, down on my ender, is running in Polymaker Cosplay B. I couldn't get any A at the time, so I got a few spools of Cosplay B. And that's another one I need to run a little bit hotter because I'm running that through an obsidian nozzle. And yeah, you just need to run a little bit hotter through a hardened nozzle and at speed as well. Those two things together, you'll want to run faster. Yes, it's PLA. So it's the Cosplay, so Cos PLA. Give me a second. I'll run downstairs and I'll show you. Yeah, it's Polymaker Polylite Cosplay. So Cos PLA. And this is version B. They have a version A and a version B. They're slightly different balances of strength and durability versus sandability, and I'll say like workability of the parts afterwards, because you're always going to have to sand and do things like that. So it is a PLA material. All of my helmets to date are PLA. So this one here is metallic bronze is the base helmet from Polymaker. The chrome pieces, so these pieces here and the sole patch and the temple studs are silk chrome from Polymaker. And then the blue is cobalt blue from Xyltech. And this is a Warhammer 40,000 Chaplain's helmet. This helmet's actually printed in three main parts, and this is in the Polymaker metallic red. And I still have a bunch more parts to print for this. And then, of course, we've got our Heavy Mandalorian Spartan mashup helmet. And this is in draft PLA. So that came out pretty well. And all of them are full-size wearable. I just need to add the padding inside to make it, help it fit a little bit better, and some visor material. Yeah, that'd be cool, Chris. Having some other tools like, of course you'd want to be careful with the work surface. So you'd have to have some type of different work surface that you can just maybe clip on the bed with binder clips. When you're going to do like vinyl cutting, you just put a sheet of Garolite up there and you can do your vinyl cutting. Lasering, you'd probably want something else. Like you definitely don't want to cut through that and mess up your build plate. But yeah, I mean, there's things that you can do to figure it out. I have Timor. In fact, I've sent that video because Free Heathen keeps talking about EDM. Yeah, that heavy, the heavy Spartan or heavy Mandalorian Spartan mashup helmet is really cool. And like I said, I've never done any finishing, so I've got a full set of. It's the Imperial Mandalorian Commando armor. I say a full set. Let me rephrase that. I just realized I missed a couple of pieces, so I have them re-sliced. I need to print the rest of them out. But I've almost got a full set of pieces for the Imperial Mandalorian Commando from Season 3 of The Mandalorian. So this is the helmet. This is in Polymaker Gray ABS. I am ABS welding the parts together, and then I will be filling in gaps with some UV resin. I've seen some things where you can take UV resin and like baby powder and mix it together into a little bit of a slurry, and then you can use that to fill in any layer lines or gaps. But these prints, I mean, let me try and get this close up. I mean, these prints came out very smooth in this ABS. I mean, yes, there are some layer lines. There will be some spots with some jags and stuff, but I'm going to be able to clean this up with a light sanding and then be able to just start going in and doing some painting. Primer filler, get it as smooth as possible, and then start painting it. Hey, Creatix Brit, how you doing? Yeah, I'm sitting here like thinking the long game of hopefully trying to have it done by Halloween. Meanwhile, Creatix Brit's over there like, oh yeah, I'm just going to bang out one in like 2 weeks for Earth. No big deal, But that's why we love Creatix Brit, is because she shows us what the art of possible is. But yeah, and the Ender Core XY build, which we'll do when we get back from Earth, that'll take a few streams, a couple weeks. And if I can talk Chris into sponsoring me for a black box build, that's going to be a month or two to probably have just basic functionality out of it of doing streams, because there'll be some medical stuff. So I've alluded to it before. Right now, I have a surgical consult on October 12th to look into eye surgery, and they'll do one eye at a time, or at least that's what I was told they would most likely do. And they're going to start with the right eye. So I'll have some downtime where we may just do, rather than a building stream, we may just do a conversation stream and work on some other stuff if that's going on. But we'll see how that goes. Yeah, I've got plenty of things printed. Like under the table right now, I've got 2 Halo helmets. One I got from Loyal Moses. The other one's one that I printed. I have a Wrecker helmet. I've got a second one of the Blood Angels helmets sitting over here that I need to finish off. Because I need to take and ship one of those over to Free Heathen, because I know he loves Blood Angels. So, hey, thanks, Chris, for gifting Creatix Brit with a Tier 1 gift sub. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, my dude. Yeah, so I really like working on these builds. You know, I've learned so much just working on the printers, and then being able to come and stream and share that knowledge back to the community is just awesome, right? I mean, just sitting here chatting with you guys all the time, or not all the time, but, you know, chatting with you all and learning like different finishing techniques from Britt, and, you know, the other builds that are going on, watching KB3D Chris and seeing all the cool stuff that Pezliz prints just with standard color changing. And now she's doing HueForge, and some of those prints that she was doing with HueForge, where she's taking photos and basically making her own photo postcards of her trips, right? I mean, that's awesome. You know, just I'm learning so much from everybody else, and being able to meld what I've learned with my own experiences and then pass that along to, I'll say, the next generation of 3D printers, not talking age, but, you know, people getting into 3D printing and helping them on their journey. You know, it's so awesome, because some people do have a lot of the basics down, and they're starting to get into modding a printer, or, you know, maybe they're going to do their first printer build, right? That's how I started doing my printer builds. Was I watched like Nero and Steve builds, and a few other people do Voron Zeros, and then I built the Voron Zero, right? It's not here. I have pictures that I may post sometime, but I built a Prusa Mark II, cheap as possible, from following along with Tom Slatterer's build series, right? And so that printer is now with what used to be my former boss. She's now just a coworker because she took a different position, and she's using it, and she prints stuff for her own cosplays with it. And I keep telling her I need to get it back from her at some point, and I'll upgrade it to a Mark III and just make it so much nicer and easier for her. But, you know, at some point I just need to meet up and get it from her so I can do that. And maybe that'll be a stream in the future where we take that and basically tear it down to the bones and rebuild it as a Mark III, because I've got all the parts to upgrade it, right? So it's just things that we can do. Exactly. And that's where I say I'm a 3D printing variety streamer, because, you know, like right now I'm 3D printing, but when I'm building 3D printers, you know, it's not 3D printing per se, but it's building things. Yeah, build all the things. And then you use 3D printers to build things like death racers or drag racers or the Ivan Miranda mini tank or whatever, right? Evil Diesel wound up sending me a couple of files to say, hey, can you print a bunch of these for me? I'm like, sure, no problem. Throw them on a printer and got them going. And what they were brackets. So I'd taken them an old, like, it was a 36 or 40-inch TV that I just didn't need anymore. And I took it over to him. And it's now sitting on his dining room table. And he printed brackets and he's got a frame around it. And he uses it for D&D tabletop gaming, where he can actually remotely control it using a tablet. And so it's got the entire map region on the TV, but it's all blanked out until you get in to a certain point of the map, and it opens up based on how far your character can see and the conditions of the map and stuff like that. Completely 100% adjacent, but it's funny how we can use so many different things. Exactly, Nick. You know, the 0G. So I got an Ender 5 Plus. I converted it to a 0G, was starting to get active in the 0G Discord rooms or channel server, and wound up doing a Hydra on it, was posting the pictures of my build and everything. And when I went to Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Fest, I ran into Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Festival, yeah. I ran into Dutch Dude, who's like one of the main people or the main person for 0G team. And in talking to him, I left there with him giving me access to their closed beta. Sorry, give me 1 second. Oops. Well, that stinks. We're going to see if this has enough to finish. We're at 90%, and it just popped off the spool. So we're going to see if this one has enough to finish the last layer or two. And so that's how this printer came about. Was he gave me access to the closed beta, and I literally got the cut sheets for the frame and just had the links cut by Masumi. And then I had to go in as they were released for the drilling and tapping based on the latest cut sheets. And then I printed the parts for it like 3 times because they kept revising the parts, right? But I got it done thanks to KB3D Chris, who provided a lot of the parts for it. And this went to Murph and was printing at Murph on KB3D's booth the entire time. And in fact, this Optimus Primal was printed on that printer at Murph in ABS. This is blue ABS. You know, it still has some, I'll say some warts from the support material. But this was printed at Murph. And in fact, this is the second one, because the first one that printed, I came in, either Saturday morning or Sunday morning, and was taking the finished print off and was cleaning the supports off. And a little boy came by with his dad and was watching me pull the supports off. And I couldn't help myself. When I got the supports done, I handed it to him. And so I started a new print. But yeah. Oh yeah, Chris is a legend. And he's helped me out on so many of these builds. Like the panels for this, the first set I got was missing one of the side panels entirely. And I was trying to see if Chris could just get me one single side panel, but we couldn't confirm that the materials would be the same. And we couldn't confirm if the smoked, like these are smoked panels, we couldn't confirm that they would be the right level of transmissivity. So I ordered a whole new set of panels from him, and he cut vinyls for me with my logo on them and installed them before he shipped them to me. So he's awesome. Chris is awesome. He helps me out a lot. And I first met Chris at Murph and talked to Murph 2 years in a row and wound up buying stuff from him at the show both years. And, you know, then the third year, I was literally standing so close to him that I was sending prints to the printer from my wireless network that I brought there to the show. And yeah, I spent most, or not most, but I was about evenly split between my table and KB3D's table, sitting there talking about that printer during the show. So all black or else. Yep. It either has to be all black or black and orange. Exactly. And it's just great that, you know, you can go out there and make good friends. Like I met Dutch Dude at Rocky Mountain Rep Rat Fest and then wound up building that printer behind me as a beta build. Now it's in an open beta, I think still. I don't think they've released it fully yet. And you know, I talk to Dutch all the time. Him and Turtle Crawler all the time. And then Edge of 3D. I mean, I sat at his booth with Dutch out at Rocky Mountain Rep Rat Fest, and then we chatted up a lot at the hotel and at the show at Murph, and I've still talked to him, you know, especially about the belt printer, and he's going to hook me up with the Core XY kit and stuff like that. So, you know, it's all about making those relationships, and I know we've had some drama, I'll say, in the last day or two. The last 2 days about how easy it is to destroy those relationships, whether intentionally or unintentionally. But you know, you gotta build those relationships and build them on a personal basis. And I think when you do that, then other opportunities open up for, you know, extending those into business relationships and stuff like that. You know, build the rapport, build the trust. All right. Just trying to keep an eye on where the end is on that spool. Because I do want to stop it before it eats the final, I'll say it takes the final bite, but you know, I'm trying to think. I think I have a different color red that I could probably swap out for that, but we'll have to do that in a minute. So we made progress tonight. We've got the OEM parts installed. It's working. Our bed leveling's working. Our bed meshing seems to be working. Now that we've got our Z height set, I am going to run off a bunch more of these prints tonight and tomorrow. And then Saturday stream, we'll actually work on converting this over to Klipper and doing those next steps. So one of the things that I will have to do for that is definitely try and make sure I got the pin out, and I'll probably print out the pin out for doing the I'll say how I need to pin out the wiring for the touchscreen. So, Chris, you weren't here for that. What we're going to do is when we were installing our AB level wiring, number one, we got rid of this plastic split loom slice and dice your fingers up crap, and we put on some split loom cloth sleeving. So we've got that going down here, and we got our ABL wire tucked in all the way through, and we got that installed. When we did that, I had a Raspberry Pi 2W. I needed to add the headers, so we soldered on the headers for it, the header pins, and we've got that physically installed to the printer right now. And I'm just not sure if it's actually getting power and powering up. So we'll double check that. I know the wiring's correct to get power, but I'm just not sure if this firmware will allow it to send power over the TFT or if those pins, I don't know. We'll see. We'll check that out. But the plan on Saturday will be to take this the next step, put flash Klipper to the board. The board on this is a MKS. Yeah, we're getting close. I'm going to have to pause that one so I can swap some type of filament out on the top. There we go. Yeah, so it's a MKS Robin Nano 3.2 board, so we can flash Klipper directly to that board. We've got a Raspberry Pi Zero down there that's now connected. That would be connected via the TFT port on the Robin Nano, so we would be able to get power and communicate over UART. And there is a pinout diagram, so we can take the stock touchscreen and use it with Klipper screen. So that's the plan. That's going to be the next set of fun. So we will have this back on its back panel and have the whole front end or the bottom opened up here in the near term future. But we will throw some more prints through it to make sure that we're still printing good. Let me work on getting this swapped out real fast. All right, folks, if you just bear with me momentarily. Let's see what colors I've got and what I can put on here. Yeah, so all I'm going to do is just swap out and finish off in a different color red. This will be a sparkle red filament. So might look interesting, but we'll see. It'll be a unique maker coin that nobody else will have except for these 9 people. Okay. And we'll let that finish and then I'll move it back in place. So this is annoying me because I really want it to come either to the back left or the back right corner because right now it's in the way. So I wind up just having to push it out of the way so that I can get my print off the build plate. And so that's why I said you got to give it at least a few layers so you can pop it off. I should be able to make that workable. And then the purge line, which was now nicely embedded on that sheet. If I get this lined up well enough, my next purge line, I should be able to pull it off. As I do the next one. And all I have to do is say print it again. And that print took about 45 minutes. But yeah, it's a little overdone. All I'm going to need to do is remove the elephant's foot off the edge. And yeah. So we do have a good print. We'll have another maker coin. But with that, folks, it is now 9:30 and I'm going to need to take off and go grab some dinner. I see Creatix Brit just went online. So I have a feeling that may be our target for a raid tonight. Let's go ahead. I'm going to try and get that set up. Type on the right keyboard. Always works better that way. And it looks like she's going to be starting here soon and she's going to have some words going. So folks, thank you for being here with me again. Thank you for coming along on this journey as we experiment and try out this Flying Bear Reborn 2. Yep, definitely see me on Saturday morning with your breakfast and your coffee. It will be a breakfast, not a brunch. Yeah, countdown is on. And I like that Earth is doing a countdown on Twitter. I think it's like 9 days before like Friday load-in. So that's really nice. Way to either kick me in gear or put my anxiety through the roof. But no, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We're doing good. The other thing I do want to say is on this printer, the belt tensions, the belts were pretty darn loose. I mean, they're still fairly loose, but I mean, they were really, really loose. And I think that was contributing to some of my initial, I'll say print, and just the prints weren't all that great. So what I did was the standard. I measured 150 millimeters between the drive belt and the idler on the gantry. And then I went through and, strummed them. And what you have to do is undo the 4 screws that are holding the motor to the plate. And then you can tension by pulling the motor. So I got the belts and tensioned the belt. Or I'm sorry, not by pulling the motor. There are tension screws on the fronts of the motors. So let me rephrase that. So you still have to loosen the screws on the front of the motors. And then there's a tension screw right here on both motors. So you undo the 4 bolts holding the motors to the plate. You can tension it and then tighten the bolts back up. And you'll check the tension on both sides. I did it just like I would a boron. And so far it seems like its tolerance is pretty good. I will say that when I did my XYZ calibration cube, I think all 3 sides were 20.17. So it's consistent on X, Y, and Z. And I was like, do I really want to try and mess with these steps or not? And I was like, nah. But I am really liking these 10 millimeter belt. I mean, they're chunky, that's for sure. But yeah, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get a raid started over to Creatix Brit. Please come with me. Let's go hang out. I think we're going to play some words to start the night off with, and then, you know, just see what she has to bring going on into the night. She's a great creator and everything. And like I said, I like watching her and learning from her on other parts of cosplay and painting and things like that. So thank you all for being here. I will be back here Saturday morning. We will be playing with the Reborn again and starting to do the journey to Klipperizing it. So thank you all for being here, and we'll see you Saturday morning. Take it easy.